Hi, I'm Justin with Warne, and today we're going to go over some of the processes that you would want to do before you hit the range when you install your scope. Those would be setting your eye relief, leveling your reticle, and then bore sighting the rifle. So what is eye relief? Eye relief essentially is when you get on the rifle and you look through that scope, you have a full sight picture from edge to edge of the view that you're looking at. You can move the scope forward or back depending on how the rifle fits you and your length of pull, and that will determine the amount of the black ring or donut you see around the edge of the scope. The goal is to eliminate that donut, but there are a few things that we'd have to look at before you set your eye relief. What magnification do you want to set your eye relief on, and what position? So we would ask what position you want to be in, because the distance of your eye to the scope is going to change depending on your body position on a rifle. If you're seated at a bench, your face is going to be much closer to the gun. If you're lying prone, then your face is going to be farther away. If you're standing with the rifle shooting offhand, it'll be somewhere in between. So we'd have to consider that when setting your eye relief. What is the purpose of the rifle? What are you mostly going to be doing with it? If you're sitting at a bench all the time shooting it, that may be the position you want to set your eye relief for. But generally speaking, we want to set our eye relief lying prone on the maximum magnification. The reason we'd want to use the maximum magnification is because that's when your eye relief is the shortest. So when you're lying prone, your face is farthest away from the scope, your eye relief is the shortest, that's the most critical time. As you decrease the power on your scope, your eye relief is less sensitive, so it'll still look fine when you're lying prone, but it'll be easier to shoot when you're standing offhand or at a bench at a lower power. So how we would set our eye relief is we would get down in the prone position behind the rifle. I would suggest looking up some marksmanship fundamentals. There's training courses, there are online resources available to figure out what the correct body position behind a rifle is. But once you have that figured out, you are going to turn your magnification on your scope to the maximum power that it has. You're going to push the scope as far forward in the rings as possible, and then you are very slowly going to slide that scope back toward your eye until the black donut disappears. So you'll see a black ring in your sight picture. When that black ring just starts to disappear and you have total edge-to-edge clarity, your eye relief is set, and that's when you would want to keep it in that position. So that's it for setting your eye relief. We're going to talk a bit about leveling a reticle. So leveling a reticle is a really deceptively complicated procedure, and it can be complicated due to a number of reasons. There's a lot of different ways to level a reticle. There are some devices using actual bubble levels that mount to either the cap of the scope or a flat surface on the gun like the top of the base, or a flat surface on the receiver. Some mount to the barrel in conjunction with another level, again on top of the scope or on a level surface. The issue with using levels on a scope or a receiver is that you're never guaranteed that the surface that you're putting the level on is completely level. What we really want to do is level the reticle itself to how the rifle fits you, to gravity or the horizon. That's the most important thing, that every time you address that rifle, the reticle is level. If it's consistent, that's the main takeaway. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Aside from the bubble levels that mount on the scope or the barrel, you have devices that can sit on top of a base that give you actual physical lines that you can look through the scope and try to line up with those lines. And there are other devices that use index points on the scope and the barrel, and you can either look through and try to line it up, or there's some techniques where you use a flashlight through the other side and project your reticle on a wall and line it with a laser level. All these are pretty complicated. But if there's any issues with the receiver or the barrel or the scope itself, they can give you false readings. So the main takeaway is leveling your reticle in the scope to how you fit the gun and making sure that that reticle is consistently level every time you use it. We're going to talk about an often overlooked step in the process of zeroing your rifle, which is bore sighting. Bore sighting can be a bit of a touchy subject because there's a lot of different ways to do it and everybody has their preference. There's a lot of tools out there in the world to help you bore sight. like this one, which will actually attach to the end of your muzzle. There's a small grid on the inside that when you look through your scope, you can adjust your reticle to line up with the center of it. There's many others like it, and there's different systems. There's laser bore sighters and different little gadgets, but essentially the goal is to look through the bore and look through the scope and have those 2 points intersect at whatever range you're going to be zeroing your rifle. In most cases, it's 100 yards. So while there are a lot of different tools on the market for helping with bore sighting from a bench without having to go to the range, a pretty fail-safe way of doing it is removing the bolt, looking through the bore, and aligning the reticle till those points intersect. Because nothing's more frustrating than wasting a lot of ammo and leaving the range with a gun that's still not zeroed.